Tonight, a crackdown on drivers following months of tragedy on our roads and $1 billion commitment to fix South Australia's roads, but the opposition claims that's not enough.
With the latest from around the region, your nightly news with Louise Hedger begins now.
Good evening. Authorities are issuing warnings to all motorists about the dangers of driving in wet conditions. Those warnings come after much of our region was hit with torrential rain.
While yesterday's downpour was well received in Broken Hill, police say drivers need to be wary of the conditions it creates.
Basically just slow down and be more aware of of what's going on around you.
Tragically, 174 people have died on New South Wales roads just this year, 55 across South Australia. Local officers are doing what they can to ensure those numbers don't increase, offering advice to motorists that when driving in the wet to keep a 3-second gap between themselves and the car in front, and to ensure the tread of their car's tyres are in roadworthy condition.
We do get a lot of vehicles driving around with tyres that are bald and smooth and even have canvas and wire showing.
Unsealed roads can be affected by the wet conditions. Police warning if the sign says closed, don't take the risk.
We have a list at the police station of traffic conditions and roads that may be closed. Seek advice, and if it's closed, don't go on it.
The Highway Patrol is also targeting distracted driving. Just this week, a driver in Sydney lost 10 demerit points for allegedly watching the Cricket World Cup on a phone, which police say was connected to his steering wheel, warning if a driver looks down at their phone for just 4 seconds whilst travelling at 60 kilometres an hour, they have just driven blind for 75 metres.
The education out there about using a mobile phone, the distraction and the risk, people are still doing it, so yes, it is disappointing.
Drivers risk a hefty fine and loss of demerit points if they're caught doing the wrong thing.
Children may be in the back, crying and screaming and whatnot. If that's happening, just pull over. Pull over, sort it out, and then continue on your way.
Patrick Ryan-Key, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The South Australian Government's promise to spend more than $1 billion on regional roads in its up-and-coming budget is already receiving backlash. The opposition claiming the commitment is instead cutting current funding.
Country roads take me home. The South Australian Government promising more than $1 billion towards making regional roads safer for motorists.
We're putting on the table in this year's budget a record $1.15 billion worth of money to fix country roads.
The announcement comes during a time of tragedy, with South Australia recently experiencing a significant rise in roadside fatalities. 55 compared with 38 last year. One all too notorious, the Mid-North's Horrocks Highway.
No example is more typified than the Horrocks Highway, a road that will receive $55 million.
The member for Frome hoping to see a full commitment towards the highway in this year's budget. A commitment, he says, would vastly improve road conditions for emergency services.
That highway is an absolute disgrace. The ambulances are all got patients in there, they're going up and down, it's undulating all the way.
The opposition has questioned the announcement, saying the funding commitment is in fact a dramatic cut.
Now, the government's announced $1 billion over 10 years. A lot of that money is from the Commonwealth government. So what you're actually seeing is a decrease in spending.
The funding is expected to be announced in next week's budget. Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Broken Hill water supplier Essential Water says it will review Level 1 restrictions by the end of the month. The Silver City was put on the restrictions in December last year due to low inflows and the Wentworth pipeline not being operational. Broken Hill has been treating water from the Murray River since February, prompting the company to review imposed restrictions at its next Customer Council meeting. The meeting will be held in the coming weeks. South Australian men are being encouraged this week to check in on their mates and make an appointment for a health check. It's part of Men's Health Week, encouraging them to take notice of their well-being and to speak up if they're struggling.
Raising awareness around men's health. This week, males, families and communities are urged to take the time and talk about mental and physical well-being.
Men's Health Week is important because it reminds men to think about their health and to think about if things are not right, to go and speak to their GP.
a new campaign aiming to start the important conversation around preventable health problems and encourage early detection. According to SA Health, 4 men die each hour from potentially preventable conditions.
Now is the best time, absolutely. If you let things build up, it always gets that little bit harder to get on top of.
The week also promoting mental well-being. A study undertaken by the Rural Health Authority found suicide rates within men in regional areas were more than double in the city, while those statistics in remote areas were 3 times higher.
We're hearing that men are talking a lot more. They're seeking help, which is really great, and we just need to keep breaking down that barrier because stigma does keep coming out as to why people don't access help.
Lane says despite the recent rain, many farmers are still struggling with the dry conditions, putting increased pressure on them and their mental health.
Yeah, being Men's Health Week, it's a great time to put your health at the forefront and get out there and do those things that you need to do. Prevention is the best way.
If you or someone you know needs help, contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Agronomists in the Mid-North have been busy trialling new crop varieties. They hope to create more durable growing options for farmers during extreme weather.
Come rain or shine, farmers are always in search of a more durable crop. A number of trial sites in the Mid-North are attempting to make crops more durable against the elements and expand sowing times.
We've been looking at using winter wheats, which can sow earlier and over a much broader range of dates.
Trial sites in Port Germain using winter wheat to open up the sowing window as far back as April.
With our current spring wheats, we really only have about 10 days or 2 weeks to get them planted.
Upper North farming systems focusing on improving the opportunities for feeding production in the region.
That time of sowing and variety selection is key to ensuring that you get a good outcome come harvest time.
The group hoping to help improve early feeding gaps coming out of summer.
What we're doing here is trying to show people there are options for diversifying their feed base. So improving pastures, not relying on a barley grass, ryegrass, self-sowed pasture.
Ruth saying trial sites are vital for the region's future.
All the varieties were sown at the same time, so it's really interesting to see how fast some of them get out of the ground.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Still to come tonight, plans for a new library in Broken Hill and funds raised in Port Pirie to support sick Australian children and their families. Welcome back. Concept drawings for a new library and cultural precinct in Broken Hill have been unveiled. The local council saying it's an exciting time for the city as it looks to reinvigorate the CBD.
Only in the concept stage, but initial designs look promising.
It's only good for business, it's only good for population, and it's good for the great people of Broken Hill.
Early impressions of City Council's library and cultural precinct now released to the public. These designs show a multi-million-dollar facility connected to the back of the historic Town Hall facade.
We've gone into every area we possibly can just to draw people into the library. You know, the library's not there just there these days for borrowing books and so forth like that. It's a meeting area and people can enjoy themselves.
Council plans to have a range of new features in the facility. They include a public archives, an enclosed garden and plenty of car parks.
What we've tried to do is encompass everything that the community wanted and what the community said. We're trying to get that in the design.
The design also focuses on the city's younger generations.
There's going to be gaming computers. There's going to be a video editing room. And there's areas there which we could really attract people. There's some quiet areas for the high school students and other students to study.
Council says the designs are not set in stone and open to community feedback. Mr Gallagher says mapping out the project is a part of the next stage.
What we'll do now is get some proper measurements, some proper surveying, some proper costings to ensure that we're not going over budget or under budget, we're spot on at what we're doing.
Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Senior students at John Eyre High School are undertaking a construction program as part of their research projects. Teachers say it gives them hands-on experience and is a gateway subject into TAFE.
Working hard to earn their SACE points, these students are learning by doing.
SACE programs are automotive, construction, engineering and electrotech boys, so it's those that are on a trade-based program, pathway.
They're required to work with a TAFE lecturer 3 days a week, and students say it's a way to gain hands-on learning while building some unique items.
It's a barbecue, it's made out of rims, so we've got 4 rims and the 4 ones here.
The plumbing to the bottom of the sink and to the tap, so that way I can actually use the hot water and the cold water system from home.
Teachers say it's a specialised program to get as much as they can out of their final years of schooling.
It's almost like it's a first year apprenticeship, I suppose, and they get to show their hands-on skills.
Students are also required to display team building skills, working together to combine their trades.
I've had help in the carpentry section to help out a few of them boys. It's a good bunch of boys, different trades.
And there's a future project in the works for the group.
Starting on the hospitality trailer, which will be pretty interesting because not many people have done anything like that before.
Really looking forward to the hospitality trailer being finished. I think that's just something very unique that's going to come from this program, and that's going to continue to be shown throughout the region. So,
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Port Pirie has held its annual Give Me 5 for Kids barbecue on Ellen Street. Today's event, Cooking Up a Storm, snagging funds to help build a new respite home in Victor Harbour for families in need. Give Me 5 for Kids is a national fundraiser supporting and raising money for children's hospital wards across regional Australia for the last 25 years. If you'd like to donate, visit giveme5forkids.com.au. A Port Lincoln woman is kickstarting a community Facebook page for people living with chronic illnesses. The group aiming to support others going through similar experiences.
At just 20 years old, Chelsea Hart is living with an illness causing her daily pain. Doctors diagnosing her last year with fibromyalgia, an illness she'll be living with her entire life.
It involves a lot of pain and tiredness and medication that sometimes doesn't even work.
Her lived experience is pushing her to kickstart a community Facebook page aimed at connecting other young adults living with chronic illnesses.
Just really want to get that message out there that people have support and they have somewhere to go and a safe place to talk about things like that they're going through.
Chelsea says her illness is often hard to explain because many people can't see the effects it has on her physically. The page helping connect users going through similar experiences.
Somebody wanted to know what questions to ask their doctor because they're going through the diagnosis of fibro, and we could help them because we have been through it, like a lot of people in the page.
Chelsea graduated from Port Lincoln High School through a flexible learning program. She's now studying to become a paralegal.
We have a lot of students that have conditions and quite often they're silent ones. They're not ones that people can visually see. So Flow is a big support for those students like they were for Chelsea.
Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Eyre Recreation Centre is undergoing a facelift. The maintenance work will be continuing over the coming weeks, and managers say members should look forward to the changes.
Long-awaited upgrades, including new division ropes, supervision access and chemical controls.
It's obviously a big upgrade for us as a centre and the members that come in to use the facilities and our general public as well.
The program is in partnership with the Eyre City Council and will cost up to $200,000.
All changes and upgrades to centres, particularly community centres, are important because they enhance the safety of the centre, which is our number one aim.
Staff say there will be both noticeable changes but also underwater changes.
In chemicals that we have to use, so it's obviously easier on the skin and bather wear and all of those sorts of things.
Changes are the safety changes through the plant room and that sort of stuff. Very important for us as the management organisation to be able to offer a safe and secure centre.
Lifeguards will be able to view both pools from the spa with a wall removal and accessibility changes that will make a difference for visitors.
We've got some new steps coming for the 25-metre pools, so they should be hopefully arriving next week. We're really excited about those. They enable people with disabilities to enter the water safely.
The changes announced here today aren't the only upgrades happening, with staff expecting members to be excited for an upcoming announcement.
We've got a lot going on in the coming months as well with our health club and our gym. I can't reveal too much about that yet, but yeah, it's definitely worth holding on to your membership for. There's some big things happening.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Coming up after the break, whale spotting season underway on the Eyre Peninsula, and Britt will have all the weather details. Hello again. The Lower Eyre Peninsula's whale spotting season has officially begun, with the giants of the deep making a splash in Port Lincoln's Bay this week. The first humpback whale and its calf was seen in Boston Bay on Monday morning. The annual migration of whales comes with the cooler temperatures, signalling the start of the mating season. Last year, over 250 whales were spotted along South Australia's coastline. The Port Augusta Greyhound Club is urging locals to head down to the track for its second last race meet ever. The free event will begin at 1 o'clock on the 29th of June and will feature a number of races, a barbecue as well as a jumping castle for the kids. It comes months after the club made the tough call to end the dog races at the end of this year after dwindling nomination numbers. Let's take a look now at fish and tips, see where the fish are biting around the region.
It's just fantastic. After a long weekend, a big drink of rain, a drop of weather, this is on at this particular time. The reports I've had this week that there's garfish, if you wade around up to your knees around the Barrows Beach area and also on the Talawi Beach, you can get yourself some nice sized garfish. Snapper are also on if you go around the regular landmarks and just check. You have to be there at the right time as well. It's a great way to have a look for this weekend. Be a good chance for some snapper. And don't forget our King George whiting. I would also still continue to work the Eastern Shoal on top end towards Spit. See you next week.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta to Jewel North. Well, in the deeper part of winter at the moment, you can tell that because the whales have been up. Another sign of deep winter as well, the squid are a lot larger. Just try drifting along the front of the shacks. That last half hour before sundown, you'll start getting some big specimens along there as well. Some big flathead, they should be showing up at the moment. Just try those deeper gutters around the creeks, and also you can get them along the shacks at night with a spear. And that's all we have from the Jewel of the North.
Whalers fishing report this week. Great tides and great weather looking good for this weekend. Land-based, there's been some good salmon out towards the Black Point coastline and also down around the Becky Point coastline as well. Off the shore, there's been some nice whiting and squid down towards the Mount Young grounds. With the big tides, definitely worth a crack for some snapper later in the afternoons. Best areas to target would be around the Ward Spit grounds.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. There's been some nice whiting caught over the past week down in the proper. So between Murray's Point right down through to Tulka has been producing some fish, especially in the shallows. The main wharf has some salmon trout up to about ½ kilo. Out wide of Port Lincoln there's been some snapper. Over at Coffin Bay there's been some whiting out at Farm Beach, and there's been some nice gummy sharks through the bay system. Out wide there's actually still been some tuna caught out around Greenley, only small fish around the 6 to 8 kilo size. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Now for the rest of the week's weather, here's Britt Aylen.
Thanks Louise, and good evening. We've had a mostly fine day with maximum temperatures hovering around the average for this time of year. Port Augusta, Whyalla and Port Lincoln all reached 18 degrees today. Broken Hill, Port Pirie and Adelaide all 17. Looking to the satellite now, where we can see a high pressure ridge that'll persist there for the next couple of days as a series of cold fronts cross the southern coast. On the Gulf waters tomorrow, northwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots, with seas at 1 metre. The sun will rise at 7:22 in the morning, with sunset just after 5:15. Port Augusta looking partly cloudy tomorrow, with the chance of morning fog, a top of 19 degrees. Whyalla 18 and partly cloudy. Port Lincoln with morning showers and a possible thunderstorm, also 18. Coffin Bay showers and 17, patches of morning frost at Woodner but mostly sunny through the day, a top of 19, Corn fine and 16, Broken Hill mostly sunny with a top of 18. Slight chance of showers at Port Pirie, otherwise fine, also looking at a top of 18 degrees, Clare 14, Cleve showers and 17, the same at Kadina, Adelaide 16. Moving ahead now to the 4-day forecast. Port Lincoln with showers through the weekend and into next week, maximums of 17 degrees each day. Cleve remaining mostly fine with tops of 16 Sunday and Monday. Woodner sitting pretty on 18 with showers expected on Sunday. Whyalla and Port Augusta both looking mostly fine with maximums sitting in the late teens. Kadina much the same, just a couple of degrees lower. Port Pirie with tops of 17 through the weekend, looking mostly fine. Clare 15 on Saturday, 13 Sunday and Monday. Broken Hill partly cloudy on Saturday, a top of 18 degrees, 16 Sunday and Monday. And Louise, before I leave you this evening, June 13th is actually World Sewing Machine Day, which seems quite fitting in this chilly winter weather. Isn't this just the perfect evening to stay in and maybe sew yourself a quilt?
What a wonderful fact. Thank you for that, Brit. I think I'll go home and do just that tonight. That's your local news this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll have updates later, but until then, enjoy your evening, whether you're knitting a quilt or not. Good night.